Hello. This would be the review for the last exam, chapters 15 through 20. This is specific only to the essay questions, 1 through 6. I will talk about them generally, and then you're on your own for the multiple choice. And of course, this isn't totally comprehensive, but it would be a general idea of what I'm looking for each one of the essay questions. So number 1, describe the purpose of IMC and show how it is different than previous marketing strategies. Integrated marketing communications is what IMC stands for, is a strategy that tries to leverage and use synergistically, keyword, hint, hint, all of the different promotional mix items that are available to the marketer, knowing that they are changing and growing over time. Think social media. Previously, marketing strategy kind of was each method, TV, billboard, radio, maybe a direct mailing was separate. They were in silos. They sometimes didn't look the same. The voice was different. So integrated marketing communications is using a single voice repetitively. The body's learned response to a stimulus kinesthesis. So we have some a better opportunity for the message to resonate and for the individuals to respond in their decoding of that message. Integrated marketing communications also is useful, is a useful approach or strategy that it allocates the resources, money for the different promotional items better than it did in the past. 2. List and give some detail to each of the promotional mix items. We have 5 categories, advertising being one. Advertising is specific to radio, TV, newspaper, magazines, internet, outdoor, so to the mass medias. The advantage is that you can access a large group of people or a large target market relatively efficiently in terms of the cost per thousand. Another advantage often is you can use some rich media, especially on the TV side, that is entertaining. Another advantage to advertising is it allows often for a repetitive message to be used, so the reach and the frequency both often can be quite high. Of course, the disadvantages of advertising is it can be upfront, the absolute cost expensive. It is not very interactive in terms of two-way communication, and probably the biggest disadvantages is many of the younger target markets are moving away from that medium, and so it's hard to get the message decoded because they just simply don't hang out on TV or radio as much as they used to. So that's one. Another category, public relations, PR. Public relations PR is the brand's ability to manage their position, their brand position, and how they want to be perceived through press releases and sponsored events, and doing other types of community-oriented actions that are communicated so people know the brand and know the brand in a positive light. PR publicity also is used when bad things happen and they try to reduce or lessen the amount of potential negative aspects that could occur due to bad events or employees doing things that would not follow their brand. Another promotional mix item would be professional selling. Professional selling is typically used in B2B rather than B2C. It's relationship oriented in that we look to not just sell somebody something. The always be closing methodology is old now. It is looking for a relationship, long-term relationships through questioning, finding out what their wants and needs are, and then delivering a service to them so we get repeat purchases. A fourth area of the promotional mix item would be social media. Social media, of course, is newer, and its biggest advantage, of course, is that the encoding and decoding happens simultaneously, that the content is often co-created, so it allows for user interaction, and therefore a relationship is developed and embraced even deeper. Things such as electronic word of mouth are more powerful in social media. It can be very spontaneous, and it also allows the brand to access the customer where they're at, where they're hanging out, which is in a lot of these electronic portals, and oftentimes can be quite inexpensive in nature. And then last would be a sales promotion in terms of a category for the promotional mix, and this is to elicit direct response, call to action, things such as coupons and samples, test driving are all ways to elicit customer use and defend against brand switching, and to ensure that you at least continue to keep your market share and defend your space in the category in which you exist. 3, describe how price is a marketing function, how is related to the value proposition. Of course, we know that price is directly related to value because that is what people perceive the value to be, is whatever they're willing to exchange money for the price that's being offered for that good or service. It is absolutely a marketing function because the price is an indication to the hedonic and the utilitarian mix in terms of why people buy something. They use price as an indicator of its relative value with competitors and other opportunity costs. We know that price is a function of marketing, and it's related to the value proposition because it is the perception that is communicated to the market through marketing activities to convince, persuade, or influence individuals to give something up of value for most likely a want rather than a need. Question 4, define the pricing strategies of price skimming, penetration pricing, and status quo pricing. Additionally, select a pricing tactic and explain its strategy. So you would, for this question, briefly have to define price skimming, penetration pricing, status quo pricing, and then select one of those and explain how strategically it would work. Price skimming is acknowledging that innovators, early majority are, in terms of the product life cycle and diffusion of innovation, are typically less price conscious. Brands can recognize this, work on the margins, try to increase or at least get to break even quickly or quicker by skimming off the top or raising the price initially to get those that are not price sensitive, or at least the elasticity of the demand isn't as powerful in that space, and they would later on perhaps lower the price. But price skimming is a strategy, again, of setting high to use the large margins to get to break even quickly and to access those early adopters and innovators and early majority that we know exist for most categories. Penetration pricing is setting a price in the opposite direction, quite low, where the margins are not as high or almost close to break even. And penetration pricing is to get yourself into the market, to get a habit of your brand, to get in the Evoke set, to gain or at least get momentum in your category, especially if you were competing in an area where people are quite price sensitive, and the product life cycle is near the end, and you need to just at least maintain people where the competition seems to be existing mostly on price. Status quo pricing is pricing your product where the competition is and changing it relative to the competition and the industry. The danger, of course, of status quo pricing is that you commoditize your product or service, and when you do that, typically you're not competing for profits, you're competing for sales, and when you do that, the price will get lowered almost to the point of no margin, and therefore you could end up selling a lot of stuff but making almost nothing. 5. How is social media part of the integrated marketing communication approach, and how it differs from other forms of the promotional mix? Again, I repeated this before, but it is important to note separately that it's part of the approach because it's part of the promotional mix, social media, and it differs mostly because of the co-creative nature of the message. If we go back to the communication model and encoding and decoding, typically in most promotions it's one way, a message is encoded and then it's decoded. In social media it's back and forth, that the message is created together with the target market in social media, like spaces like Facebook, Twitter. Unlike a web page, you can't really, unless it's a blog, you really can't comment back on something. In a Facebook post, a YouTube video, a Twitter account, Instagram, Pinterest, content is actually added and created by the customer as well. And it appears that that forms a deeper, long-lasting, and more meaningful relationship. It's also rapid, and because of its electronic nature, the cost can be quite low, and spontaneity is often one of the main advantages of using social media. Of course, it's dependent. It usually is more effective in consumer to or business to consumer, B2C models. B2B, it's not quite so, other than what we know to be true for LinkedIn. We also should recognize that social media is the space where most millennials are being driven to, or at least hang out, and it's a great way to communicate with them because that's where they access most of their information in areas that are directly social media or related, such as places like Netflix or Amazon, Hulu, or other devices where people might be, sites where people might be being entertained. 6. Let's make sure again. Explain in concept the communication model. So you're going to have to be able to draw the model where we start with a receiver and a sender, and the sender in their field of experience crafts some type of creative message, and how they do that is through something called encoding. That encoded message then is delivered through a channel of communication, which would be one of our promotional mix items. That stimulus then is received by the target market, and they interpret that and make sense of it through a process called decoding. Knowing that this happens in a very competitive environment, there is a lot of noise that occurs, and so it's important to be creative in your encoding, and that the target market is the right one, so they decode it properly and you have better resonance and relevance in that message, so it appeals to the individual or the target market. So we have a response that would be either remembering the brand, interacting with the brand, going to the website, or ultimately buying. In order to break through the noise, a process called ADA, get the interest, or get the attention, interest, desire, and action, is a model that's used because it takes individuals through the 3 domains of cognitive thinking, affective feeling, and conative action, knowing that, again, any promotion should inform, remind, persuade, to make people think, feel, act through the domains of cognition, or cognitive, affective, and conative. Yeah, I think that'd be it. So those are briefly some explanations on a paragraph or 2 that you could write for one of those 3 essay questions. And then, of course, you have the multiple choice. It would be wise for you to go through your notes, which are in chronological order, to the work that we did in class and the textbook. And that would be it.